Hello. Please say hi in the comments when you arrive so we can see who's here. We'll be going in under 3 minutes, and we'll start with a short video before we get on with the sketching. Hi, Shakti. Welcome, welcome. Hi, Claudia. Welcome. Once the countdown's done, we'll do the short intro video I'm still testing out, and then we'll get sketching. Tonight we're going to do a single sketch for the whole time, and a little spoiler alert, I just had to go back to the same one we finished on Tuesday. The Mr. Tom has entered the room. Hey Tom, welcome. Welcome, welcome. So tonight we're going to do 20 minutes, and I'm going to work on the same one that I ended on last time to show you guys just how to take these things the next step. Okay, I haven't decided if I'm always going to do that, but I felt like it this week, and I thought something you guys might enjoy. All right, we'll sit back and enjoy the intro, and we'll see you guys in about 45 seconds. Welcome, everybody. So, we've got a challenge tonight. We've got to have a sketch club and keep it beautiful with 90% of our beauties missing. So, Izzy had a little dance thing tonight. They're dancing in a parking lot outside. So, she's out doing that. And of course, she can't do it by herself, so her mama's helping her. So, it is just me and you tonight. So, what do you say we get to sketching? So as I was saying, I'm going to continue on for the entire 20 minutes tonight with the one that I've been working on. Oh, thanks, Shakti. Shakti liked the intro. We were wondering if it was too sappy. Cindy loves it, but for those who don't know me, who knows? Who knows? So what do we do to keep developing? You see how the bottom of the water jug kind of disappears, right? Going through air. So can we show some of that there? Hi, Janny. Welcome. Good to see you. Cindy sent me a text that you sent, and I have not had a chance to look at it. I'll look at it tonight, though, and see. Janny's got this wonderful old painting. Wonderful, wonderful old painting. So we're, hey, there's part of the beauty. There's part of the beauty. Ah, thanks, Claudia. Claudia's into the intro too. So part of developing is having movement within those things, like having the jug itself get weaker and stronger depending on how close to us it is, right? How much air it goes through, and our concept, our focal point. We can get rid of a lot of that bottom part of the jug because we want them focusing on the grapes down there. Now, if there's not something else for them to focus on, it's hard to make things vague, right? The other end of vagueness is giving them something to focus on. Hey, Karen, welcome, welcome. So I was apologizing to everybody. I couldn't help myself, and I pulled this one back out, and we're going to work on it for 20 minutes again tonight, kind of showing how we might develop. So a lot of that's going to be implying the atmosphere that's there and making sure you feel the atmosphere. Even in a leaf, we can have near to far, or one side that focuses and one side that's not quite so clear, that's further away, that has gone through more air, so it's more vague. Okay. So a lot of this videos I'm going to be working on around that, right? How are we going to get up to that water jug? What happens before the water jug? What happens after the water jug? So we're going to see if we can't make the environment a little richer. And let's see what that does to the work. So one of the things I'm thinking about is, where do I want vagueness? And where do I want focus in the background? All right? Sometimes we think, oh, background, we can just go on autopilot, make it all the same. It doesn't quite work like that. It takes some thought. And since it is background, and we don't want big, heavy marks down there, we have to be careful from the start with the background, right? And Monday, we're going to start our new session, and we're going to start talking about that, having consideration for the airiness and the vagueness as we start, and not starting in a way that we take the possibility of airiness and vagueness away. Okay? How can we push the background forward and keep it vague? I mean, what would that even mean? What does that even mean? So again, charcoal's a lot like oil in that we can build it up, so to speak, which can be frustrating at first because it's not one and done, right? We're not hitting it like we're hitting a marker or ink or something. That's not really fair to marker or ink either, but I think you get my drift. And so it's a matter of going over and going over, of kind of pushing and pulling. And it's a dance. And for me, that's what's beautiful about it. It's a dance. And at the end of the dance, there's a whole history there. Because of the time and stuff, I let my opening at the top get way too wide. But again, especially when you're on a time limit, you have to kind of pick your battles. And what was on my mind here more than anything is that relationship. I want that water jug to seem like it's sitting in an environment, right? And I want your focus to move through the scene, or for there to be a nice eye path to travel. Okay, so if you were doing this in oil, this outside edges of the image here, how could you do that in oil? You see, it's just kind of suggested there. Nothing's really made out. Versus this leaf that I'm working on, I'm being very specific, extremely hard-edged versus the background. Okay? So we have to treat each of those and put them in differently if we want them to look and feel different. For those of you that are late or came in a little bit after, Izzy had a little dancey dance tonight. Her dance theater group, whatever, should know the lingo, but they opened back up, but they're in the parking lot instead of inside. So you're gonna have to imagine a couple of beautiful girls sitting here with me. Help me pull through this show. And I was also talking about how each leaf can have a near to far, a specific and a vague. Right? Even the stem could get specific, vague, specific, vague. Right? I've come to understand and see the hard line to the airiness, to the manifestation of an object, to that dissolving into spirit, and then another object manifesting, as almost like a pump, right? Where we go down to something and then back out to nothing, and by kind of pumping that, it's a way we can move them through the canvas. Almost like if I was on, probably a surfboard, right? You know how they surf, they pump their legs on a wave. How can we pump dark and light to move the eye? You guys with me? Have I just gone over the edge? Pumping dark and light, vagueness and somethingness to create movement. I promise you it can be done. It sounds like crazy until oh wow, this will move the viewer's eye. I know I've told this story many times, but I wanted to go down to LA to see a particular work. It was a work by David. He was in a group show down there at the Gene Autry Museum. And things were a little tight, couldn't really afford the gas to go down there, but hopped in the car and drove down, spent the gas money, and I pay my money. I go into the museum, I find the painting, and I am as pleased as punch. Pleased as punch. Here I am standing in front of the painting. Here's my opportunity. And at this particular time, I had just really became more and more aware of nothingness. So I was there to study how he let his objects drift off into nothingness. So standing in front of the painting, about 20 minutes has gone by. By the way, highlights can be very, very powerful, and they don't need to be everywhere. How much do you need? I'm standing in front of the painting, and after 20 minutes, I'm starting to get a little frustrated. I keep looking at the nothingness, and I just cannot maintain my mental focus. I go wandering off to other parts of the painting and looking at and I'm like, damn it, Jason, focus, right? You don't have the money to be here screwing around. You've driven down 3 hours. You got 3 hours back home. You got to get what you need out of this. Focus. So I go back to the vagueness, and as hard as I can, I'm trying to focus, and within a few seconds, I'm just somewhere into something else. Kind of like squirrel, where are we going? And after continuing this dance of frustration, probably to the point where the guards are ready to throw me out, I just start laughing. I realize that the point of the nothingness is not to allow you to focus on it. And by not being allowed to focus, rather than a stop, it becomes a bridge or a go. And even when you try to focus on the nothingness, there's nothing there to focus on. So it was a very frustrating experience that turned really beautiful. And luckily I didn't get barred from any museums. So highly successful. But all of that's to say that nothingness, you know, everybody paints somethingness. But the somethingness doesn't become real until it's joined by the nothingness, right? We need to, even though we're never going to be able to see it in this picture, in this painting, in this drawing, I want to feel the back side of that water jug, right? And that's where air and atmosphere and weight and movement, form can all help with that. So what might seem like me just going over the background and going, I'm looking for a very specific measure. And the other thing I'm doing as I go over is making sure there's no hard edges in there. Because hard edges are very much a somethingness, right? And they've got they've got no place, hard edges, which say somethingness. There's absolutely no room for them in the nothingness. Okay? A time and place for everything. Or is it a season? Something along those lines. Okay, and so I think everybody's in, but for anybody who joined me late, again, so I've worked on this 15 minutes, and I'm going to be working on it 20 minutes tonight. We're already over halfway through on here. And just to kind of show you what's next, right? How do we develop this? And one of the reasons I wanted to showcase this was because it's not really about more, not more detail. What I'm doing now is thinking more in terms of giving this a foreground, right? So just like we pumped the dark and the light, at least somebody understands what I'm saying. That's good. It's okay if you don't too. I don't mind being out in weirdo land. But that pumping the dark and light, as I get this foreground, also each stage of dark, light, dark, light, dark, light, dark, light, dark, light. The more of those I have in there, the further back, right? The more room there is between us and the water jug. And so when you start playing these games, what to the casual viewer looks like, get on with it, actually is a really, really large part of the composition and whether this thing works or not. And it's fun. But like everything, it doesn't happen on one pass. We were talking earlier that charcoal is a lot like oil paint in that it can be built up and kind of wiped down or scraped off. We had a couple of people this time around who just scraped their paintings off and started again. And what you find is you think you're going to scrape it all down to nothing, but basically the entire image is there, but your surface is just smooth. So it's like a fresh start. Fresh start on a half-finished painting. Woohoo! What could get more fun than that? And I have to admit, I always thought I was a pretty humble person, but it turns out that I'm a complete narcissist. Watching these videos, I can just sit here and watch these over and over. It's almost like I didn't even do them, but just watch the stuff appear. It's just, it's mesmerizing to me. So beautiful. But it wasn't always mesmerizing. Used to, before I tried or knew how to let every mark push the piece forward, just about I would get up to a point where, man, I've got this good. And then every mark from there would tear it down and make it worse. Tear it down and make it worse. Oh man. And that doesn't feel any good. If none of you have ever experienced that before. Woo! But if you've picked up a pencil to draw and you were honest about it, I'm sure you felt that. But when you let every mark, again, just push the whole forward, it's just magic. So I did all that work. Now watch with the chamois, some of that's going to get wiped back. But that's how I build up that patina, because some of the dark's getting wiped down, but some of the light around the dark is getting grayed off. So my light and dark are getting closer together, right? Then I can use that as a base to go back later. And then I can also use it once my chamois dirty or your finger's dirty or your paper towel, whatever you're using. You can actually wipe that dirtiness off in the background in the air somewhere, as long as you don't leave hard edges. As long as you don't leave hard edges. And then the question of how vague can you go? Right? Well, that cast shadow will definitely help anchor that down there, so that gives us a little more leeway. Right? But just how ghostly do you want it? And that's the question. And it's really a question about what are you focusing on? As I've worked on this a little bit, I've come to understand, usually I'll cast a shadow of the grapes onto the water jug, but I think I'd like to be at the grapes at the bottom of the table and then have a cast shadow and then light on the table before we get to the jug. And what will that do? Well, that'll create more depth between those two things and more depth in our painting overall. Okay, I don't get to that at this stage, but it's something that I saw while I was doing this, or I guess after. And again, now I'm coming into my highlight and not going over all of that I've already put down in those soft edges, but I'm just adding little things. And notice how all my marks are in one way. See how it's giving movement to those highlights? A bit of a soft edge there. We want to try to do that in almost everything. On those little bitty grapes, it can be hard, but even on those little bitty grapes, we want to do it. Especially like now, my white is really dull. It's not very sharp, so it's hard to get. But we still have to try. We still have to try. Then now that I have my black down, if you have a dark silhouette and you need to make it cooler where it's lit up, I can add just a touch of white and it'll go cooler up there. Do you see how the top of that looks different than the bottom where it's vagued out? One is catching light, the other is going through air. So those two things need to have a different look and feel to them. Okay, just a few more minutes on this one and that'll be it. And again, I'm back on the table. And one of the things I'm thinking about, and I think it's just off screen, unfortunately I cut this out, was kind of a dark up front here, right? To say forward, right? What would a dark up front, how would that translate in JSON language? Well, a dark up front would be our more. And in order to send things through air, through atmosphere, through space, you have to have more so that you can go less. Without the more, there is no less. Without the less, there is no more. So we'll go over this Monday. And don't forget, we do have our last Friday feedback tomorrow, more of a celebration than feedback. But I'll be pushing things forward again, but we're here to celebrate your work on the last day of the class. So we started, as I was saying, I was going to start on Monday with this, being narcissistic again, getting caught up in the drawing. Hey, Lori. Lori popped in again. I completely lost where we were going. Oh, so we started with those big divisions of the canvas, right? Our dark, our gray, our light, our highlight, or whatever we have. Usually the big divisions are just the three. But now I'm asking you to consider the transition from one to the other, right? What if we did want to be able to cut out our painting with a pair of scissors, right? How can you make an edge that would be impossible to cut out with scissors, right? What does the shape of air look like? Is it geometrical? No, it's different. It's different. And part of what makes a good painting is having the concrete, more or less geometrical shapes of the grapes, of the water jug. And even the leaf is a little bit of a geometric shape versus the shapes on the tabletop and the air in the background. Right? How do those shapes compare? And look at that, I ran out of time. Oh man, and we're just getting good. It's just getting fun. All right, guys, so I hope you'll take this opportunity to go back to your drawing and try to push it forward. You know, how can you say depth on a tabletop? That dark, light, dark, light, dark, right? How can you say the shoulder of the water jug is near you and the base of the water jug is away from you more than the shoulder? Well, you can send it through air. What does that look like when you send something through air? It gets weaker. The mountain right here in your face is really strong, yet the mountain on the horizon is just a soft, light blue silhouette. It's weaker. Air, and we're just bringing that air that we usually, in that atmospheric perspective that we usually see over miles and miles and miles, and like Rembrandt, putting it in even when it's a matter of inches. And by doing that, that brings that great feeling and literally brings that great depth to the work, which gives it some of its actuality. All right, everybody. Well, I hope I did okay without my beautiful partners in crime. So if I did, let them know. If I didn't, don't say anything. It'll be our little secret. And then we'll be back tomorrow morning for our Zoom. And so if you have anything you'd like to say or share or review about your work and how you've come, I was real happy with everything I've seen. Well, you have a chance to take the floor and say that. And then if there's any questions or comments, I'll even address that. And some people have asked how to carry it forward, so we'll do a little bit of that as well. All right, so until tomorrow morning, bye everybody. Thanks for joining me.